In this video, we're going to go ahead and play around with our waterfalls and paint them between our levels. So to get started, I want a clean slate. So I'm going to take my eraser tool. I'm going to make sure my active tile map is the foreground layer, which is where my waterfalls currently reside. And I'm basically going to just clean it up. So I'm going to take the eraser and I'm going to delete the waterfalls. Just like this, just by clicking, holding, and dragging. Alrighty, now that the waterfalls have been removed, I'm going to make sure I stop playing as well. Make sure you're not in editor mode when you do that, or make sure you're not in play mode. So let me go ahead and erase these. And what I'd like to do now is I would like to figure out where I want to place these waterfalls. One cool idea I had was, what if we were to take the waterfalls and we were to place them up here? So say we were to create a waterfall from here, going all the way down, and basically it would disguise that there's a jump here. And what we can do is we can basically take the transparency level of this, bring it down so that our player is going to basically jump behind the waterfall to make it. And we'll notify them that if they miss, they're going to die because they have the spikes here. So let's go ahead and actually create that waterfall. I'm going to just paint downwards. And you'll see here that I'm actually painting over the spikes right now, and that's okay. Right now the spikes are actually on the wrong layer. This is the foreground layer that we're painting on, and these spikes are actually going to be a part of the ground layer since it's what the player can interact with. So here we go, we have our waterfall here, and if we want to be able to see behind it, what we can do is we can grab our select tool, and we can drag and grab all of the sprites that make up our waterfall. And one of the things I did incorrectly here was we didn't make use of our right side. So I'm just going to go ahead and replace that sprite. So paint right waterfall. And let's do that. There we go. That looks much better. So I'm going to grab my select tool. I'm going to grab all of the waterfalls. And once I've done that, you can see here in the inspector that we can actually change the color property. And we can actually adjust the alpha transparency. We'll be able to see our player behind it. And one of the things we can do with that is we can basically have that transparent, and we'll have some spikes on our ground layer sticking through. So you know that if you miss this jump, you're going to fall right to the spikes. So this puts the waterfall in front basically. So one of the things now we can do is we can go ahead and grab our foreground items, and we want to draw these sprites. Now if I draw them here, I'm basically going to overwrite where my waterfall is, and we don't want to do that. Instead, what I would like to do is I need to get on the ground layer. So my active tile map is going to be the ground tile map. And now I can simply place these spikes and you can see them through the waterfall. And if we wanted, we can even create transparency for these spikes individually. So these tiles specifically, we can lower the transparency so we can make the spikes more prominent. So to do that, we want to make sure we are on the foreground items because that's where our waterfall is. Let's select these few sprites here, and let's just adjust their transparency level. So select, make sure you're on the foreground, and we'll grab these, and let's increase their transparency. So you can see here, we can control individual tile transparencies. So we can go ahead and make that however we like. So that way you can actually see the spikes down below. So if we go ahead and stop this, save our scene, and let's run this, you'll see here that we're going to have a beautiful waterfall with spikes down below. And our player will be able to actually jump through this waterfall and we'll see him through it. So it's going to be really neat. Another thing we can do is let's go ahead and add some water effects maybe through the caverns here. So if I go back to my waterfalls and I want to paint on the caverns, what I'm going to be doing here is painting basically on the midground layer. So let's go to our midground and let's go ahead and take a waterfall tile, and you can see here where I can paint. So I can go behind our ground layer, but I'm in front of our far caverns. So one of the things that I can do is we can basically go ahead and paint down. Now if I wanted to paint behind the midground so that the waterfall is coming through the cavern, I would have to go into the far ground layer. So once we're on the foreground layer, we can focus in on our tile map here. And basically I can now paint, to focus in on just those tiles, I can now paint a waterfall straight down. Another thing that might be cool is to add sort of a transparent layer and do a waterfall like this, just having a little bit of water show. So let's go ahead and take this middle waterfall here, and let's just have it come straight down. So we're going to paint straight down, and there we go. Another cool thing we can do is on this side, we can go into our midground layer, and let's go to this side, and we can just simply have a little bit of paint going. So just like normal water. Now, because this is a transparent layer and we're on our midground here, it's a little, you're seeing the transparent layers bringing the blue back, and we don't want that. So what we'd have to do is we'd actually have to fill in a tile there on the foreground layer. So to avoid that, it's best to use the middle waterfall, and then we can get whatever effect we want. So for this one specifically, you're going to want to be in the foreground. You're going to take your middle tile, and we're just going to paint right through here. So we're going to just paint down. And there you go. Looks like we have running water. And last but not least, I am going to add one on our foreground. And you can see here it's highlighting our foreground. It's a little difficult to see. So I'm going to undo tile map, make it focus on none. And I'm just going to actually add a little bit of water flowing straight down here. And for this, go ahead and fill that in, and we'll create just a waterfall. And there we go. Let's go ahead and save our scene, and let's run this. And now we've created depths of different type of waterfalls that we can see. In the next video, we're going to go ahead and take a look at another 2D extra tool called the prefab brush, which is going to allow us to basically paint collectibles throughout our level.